Hi guys, this video is on brain exercises and how working on the 24 cranial nerves can really affect our mood, can help us with hypervigilance, bring us out of fight and flight, anxiety, and fear syndromes, and also to reduce pain. So, looking at maybe just four or five. There's so many of these brain exercises that you can do, but let's just look at a few of them and just see if there's one of them that really helps you. So you don't need to do them all. Usually, if you try them all, you'll have your favorite, your go-to exercise that will help you when you're feeling stressed, when you're feeling anxious, if you've got a lot of pain, if you're in hypervigilance where your brain is just going around and around, and it's circular thinking where you just can't break out of something that's worrying you. So let's come to the first one, and this is very this is just sort of information really, but we've got two halves of the brain. We've got the two larger parts of the brain up here and smaller parts at the back here. And we're not going to get too much into science, but we can easily see that the left brain is, I've got it written down here on my piece of paper, is the side of us that is called the planner. Some people call it the architect. It's logical, it's focused, it's analytical, it's scanning everything and getting information and making decisions about where our body is, how safe we are. The lower part, the more emotional part of the left brain, is where we hold on to emotions, past hurts, PTSD, grudges, sort of brooding, self-protection, memories and trauma. So that's the left side of the brain, and pain is held in this left side or perceived in this side. On the right side is called the connector. It's a much more global part of the brain. It's looking at everything. It's trying to bring things together, and it's more relaxed. It's where we would house our wisdom. It has more neuroplasticity. It's changing, it's learning all the time. It explores. And then the emotional part of the right brain is more happy, it's more playful. It's where we have our joy, it's where we have hobbies, gratitude, curiosity. So two very different halves of the brain. And the brain always is operating on the opposite side. So the right brain deals with the left side of the body, the left brain, right side of the body. So that's as far as we're going to go with the science. So a very simple thing, that both sides work together. There's not a right side and a wrong side, but sometimes we do get stuck too much in one side. And in my Pilates practice, I often see people that are very logical. Their bodies are starting to move over into the right side, and people that are very caught up in emotional things, their body's moving over to the left side. So you can actually see the body reacting to being too much in one side of the brain. So let's just start with covering our eyes. So this is a really simple, quick, easy thing you can do. So cover your eyes and just reduce all the information coming into the brain. And let's just uncover our right eye, and let's just come into our left brain. So the left brain is the architect, it's the logical side, the analytical side. It's where we feel stress, anxiety, and just assess how you feel in yourself. So when I look through this right eye, it's got nothing to do with vision. I've got really poor vision in this eye. Doesn't matter that it's fuzzy and I can't quite see quite so clearly through this eye. I feel in myself, I feel a little bit anxious, a little bit hyper-vigilant. Um, yeah, just a little bit nervous, I think is the way I describe it. And then close your eyes again. And then just give yourself a moment, just your brain just to relax out of that. And now you're going to uncover your left eye and you're going to come into your right brain, which is your happy explorer, more playful, more joyful, rest, digest, calm, so parasympathetic. So the other side is more autonomic nervous system and more sort of vigilance, and this side is more the relaxed part of the nervous system. And just see how you feel. I immediately feel calmer when I look through my left eye. So there's no right or wrong to that. If you were going to go into a really important meeting, you might just think, okay, I'm going to cover my left eye, and look through my right eye and really sort of go into my left brain because I need to be focused. I need to be analytical and quite sharp. But if you're feeling anxious, a little bit in fight and flight, a little bit nervous, then maybe just cover your right eye and look through your left eye so that you connect with your right brain, and just give yourself 20, 30, 60 seconds here and just see if that helps you to feel more calm. So that is one thing that you can do. Excuse me. Things to do, I've got things written down here for brain health. The number one thing for brain health is sleep. We need to get lots of sleep. That's when our brain restores and balances. We need good diet, fresh food. We know that. Reduce sugar. Sugar is really bad for the whole body, but especially for the brain. Movement, exercise, that's self-explanatory. Music takes us into the right side of the brain, and the fun part of the brain and the joyful part of the brain. So just listening to happy music, not music that's sort of really heavy and has bad connotations. Loss of hydration. We need fluid for the body. And then learning, anything we do that's learning creates novel brain experience, which neuroplasticity, which is really, really good for the brain. And when we're learning new things, it integrates the right brain with the left brain because we need to use both sides of the brain to do that. So it's really good. Alcohol is very bad for the brain, and addictions live in the left side of the brain, and traumas, PTSD. And I've written down here that trauma needs to be heard. It doesn't need to be buried. It needs to be heard. It needs to be held, and it needs to be listened to so that it can transform from trauma into ultimately into acceptance. So that's the right brain and the left brain. So understanding that basic thing now, let's come into the brain stem is at the back of the mouth. So where you've got the brain, and then you've got what we call the brain stem, where all the nerves, we've got 12 nerves coming out on the right side, 12 nerves coming out on the left side. They're all very important, but one that we look at specifically is the vagal nerve, number 10, because the vagal nerve talks to all the organs and all the systems in the torso, and its main job, 80% of what it does, is taking information back to the brain. So it's going to regulate your heart rate. It's going to regulate your breathing. It's going to bring your blood pressure down. It's going to aid with your digestion. It's going to relax some emotional muscles in the body like the psoas, temperature, all sorts of things. So the vagal nerve is really important to bring you out of fight and flight and bring you into calm, relaxed, and ready to heal. So we've got these two parts of our brain. So there's three parts of fight and flight. We've got the middle one is fight and flight. So if something happens, we need to get out of danger quickly. That fires up. We get adrenaline and cortisol and hormones in the body that enable us to go into fight mode. And at that point, we decide, are we going to fight or are we going to run away? But whichever way, we're getting away from danger. And the third one, the one at the back, is a very primal one, which takes us into paralysis. So we see, especially in animals, that if they're attacked, sometimes they go into complete paralysis as a defense mode. And oftentimes it works if they go limp, they don't get killed, they don't get eaten. So humans have that as well. And, people see that in extreme cases of things like rape and assault, that you can go into a completely paralyzed state. We don't want to be in either of those two. We don't want to be in hyper-vigilance where we're looking for danger the whole time. We want to come into calm and relaxed, where we can digest, we can relax, and we can heal. So in this parasympathetic nervous state, that's where our body recovers. So fight and flight's only designed, created to be for very short periods to get us out of danger, not to live there all the time. So the vagal nerve, there's one of the spaces you can really address the vagal nerve is just at the corner of your jaw here. If you were to get two fingers, and you can just do little gentle circular rubbing. You don't want to be firm, you don't want to be too hard. It's not like you're massaging a muscle. Nerves prefer to be just gently stimulated. So as you do the circle here at the jaw, you're sending messages back up through the vagal system to the brain just to relax and to regulate, to come back into balance. So some of the signs that you get when you regulate your vagal system is you yawn. Some people cough. Sometimes you sort of swallow. There's a deep swallow because you increase saliva in the mouth. So, and sometimes it's a sigh. A sigh is a double breath. So you breathe and then you breathe again. And so it's a deeper breath than a normal breath. So all of those things would denote that you've just regulated your nervous system. Sometimes it's better to just to do one side. So then you feel that you've addressed that side, and then do the other side. If you do them both, if you're in a hurry. But if you do one side, and if you look at someone's neck, you can see this muscle that comes down here. You can see it with me actually today, that this side is it's sticking out more. The muscle is tighter. So that shows that I'm very active in this side. This side, which is softer, is often the side that's more problematic because that shows low vagal tone. It means that it's not, so this one's hyper-vigilant and this one's not vigilant enough. And so quite often in the body, it will be the left side, if this is the side that's very soft, that will be the side that has some of the problems going on. Maybe that's, got neck issues, maybe you've got a pain somewhere, and it's all coming out on that left side. So, one's too vigilant, one's not vigilant enough. So you just address both and you bring it into balance. So another thing that's really good for stress and anxiety is what's called box breathing. So box breathing, you take your finger, you use your finger because it gives you something physical to focus on, which helps the brain to regulate. So when you're in an anxious state, your breathing is already altered, your heart rate is already going faster, your brain is receiving messages that you are in danger. And it could be that you've just opened a letter up and it's a big bill and you can't pay it. But your body starts to react and your brain perceives that as danger. So box breathing, you're going to take your first finger and you're going to draw a slow line upwards, and you're going to breathe in through your nose, not your mouth. So you breathe in for a count of 5. And then hold your breath for 5. Breathe out through the nose for 5. Hold your breath for 5. So you're drawing the box. Again, breathe in through the nose. Hold your breath for 5. Breathe out through the nose. Hold your breath. You do that 5 to 6 breath cycles. Hold your breath. Breathe out through the nose. Hold your breath. We'll do it one more time. Hold your breath. Breathe out through the nose. Hold your breath. So both of those sorts of breathing, holding your breath raises nitric oxide in your lungs, and breathing through the nose raises nitric oxide in the lungs. And nitric oxide does a whole load of things. It regulates your nervous system. It reduces your heart rate. It calms your breathing. It kicks into that parasympathetic nervous state. It kills pathogens and viruses and germs. So nose breathing is a really important technique to learn. And they say 5, but everyone's got a different lung capacity. So you could try 6, you could try 7, 8, up to, whatever, 9 or 10. I think some people go to 20, but I find that I get to about 9 and I start to feel anxious because I'm holding my breath and it's starting to feel uncomfortable. So just find the number that works best for you, where you're not straining to hold your breath in those 2 holding breath cycles. And then just do that, and it'll help you to sleep as well. If you raise nitric oxide in the lungs and the bloodstream, it causes you to feel sleepy. So it's really good if you can't sleep. Amnesia. Amnesia? No, that's not the word, is it? Not being able to sleep. So amnesia is when you lose your memory. So let's look at the next one. Capital J. Capital J, that sounds interesting. So we've got the brain stem at the back of the mouth, and sort of if we were to draw a line through the ear holes, sort of to the midpoint, that's where the brain stem is well. So in the ears, 6 of those 12 nerves that come out of the brain stem go into the inside of the ear. So not only do we address the vagal nerve in this exercise, we address the accessory nerve, which is another really important nerve because it relaxes all your neck muscles, and then 4 others as well. So they're all really important. They all do different things. And you don't need to know the science, you just do the simple exercise. So if you were to get your earlobe and you're just going to gently pull down, around, and slightly up. So that makes a capital J. So as you do that, do it slowly, do it gently. As you pull down, around, and slightly up, you're trying to feel the stretch on the skin that's inside the ear. So as you pull on that skin and fascia that goes into the ear, you're also pulling on the nerves, those 6 nerves. So again, when you do this, you could get the sigh, the yawn, the swallow, maybe a cough. So that just tells you that you've just regulated your nervous system on this side. So you could do that 5 or 6 times. And then start with the earlobe and just gently pull your ear outwards in the shape of the ear. And you're trying to feel the stretch inside your ear. And maybe you just go up and down 2, 3, 4 times. Okay, we'll just do it twice. So then you can see this shape, funny shape flap of skin. If you were to get your finger and you're going to just go behind that flap and you're pushing sort of to the midpoint where your nose is, you're pushing against the hard bone of your skull. You don't need to be too rough with this. It's quite a gentle pressure, but there's a nerve here. So you're trapping the nerve and you don't want to squash it, you don't want to hurt it, but you just want to squeeze that nerve so the message goes back to the brain. So I got a sigh there when I did that one. Okay, and you do it for 20, 30 seconds or till you get the sigh, the yawn, the swallow. So then you could go into the ear hole and you could push sort of upwards against the skull to about what would be here on the other side of the skull. So this is another nerve. So you're in the ear hole and you're pushing upwards and slightly backwards to what would be a point about here. It's not good if you've got long nails. You have to use your finger pads if you've got long nails. Okay, and then a third point is you've got this little ridge that goes above the ear hole, and then you've got a second indentation that's higher up. So same thing, you go into that second indentation, you're pushing slightly upwards and slightly backwards to sort of somewhere sort of towards the back of your skull. Gentle pressure. And then you do it 20, 30 seconds. So these are things that you could do. So if you were in a meeting or something, you could do this without anybody knowing that you were doing it if you were feeling stressed. Maybe not that one. Looks a bit obvious, doesn't it? So that is the capital J and some of the ear points where you can press on the nerves. And obviously you do the opposite, down, around, and up. down, around and up. I'm doing it much quicker, but you do it slowly. Feel the stretch on the skin on the inside of the ear, then contour the ear and you're pulling out, trying to feel the stretch on the inside in the ear canal. And then you've got the flap here, you're pushing towards the nose. Then you go a little bit more into the whole of the ear and you're pushing upwards and backwards to somewhere towards the top of the skull. And then you go up into the second indentation and upwards and backwards, maybe slightly towards the back of the skull. So any of those places you can get a release on the 6 nerves that come out of the brainstem. Humming is an exercise that really connects you with the vagal system. So humming, so just going around and humming a song to yourself is going to help to regulate your nervous system. Another one that you can do that's very simple, that no one even knows that you're doing it, is just push the tongue gently to the roof of the mouth. So just pressing the tongue to the roof of the mouth, immediately you're connecting with your vagal system, but then allow the saliva to fill the under part of underneath your tongue, and maybe hold that saliva for about 30 to 60 seconds without swallowing. So it's in the bottom of the mouth, so it's not going to make you feel uncomfortable. Tongue to the roof of the mouth, don't swallow, and then just allow that saliva. And then the saliva and the tongue position signals the brain, it's all part of your swallowing reflex, to relax and to balance. So that's a nice simple one. And then the final one is my favorite, my personal favorite, because it does so many things. You'd have to read the list out. There's so many things. But one of the most important things it does is that too much of us these days are on phones and computers, and we've gone into what's called forward head posture. And our head is too far forward. Our ears should be lining up with the center of our shoulder. Our ears should line up with the center of the shoulder and not be forward. So when the head is forward, the spinal cord and the nerves of the brainstem are all being stretched. And some heads can move forward 2 or 3 inches, which is huge for the spinal cord. And it's going to affect the nerves coming in and out of the brain. It's going to affect the blood flow to the brain. And that has real implications on our health and our longevity. So we don't want to be in this forward head posture. So maybe get someone to check where your ears line up with the middle of your shoulder. And if you're in that forward head posture, the salamander is one of the exercises you can do to correct that. So what you're going to do is you're going to grow very long in the neck. So, and then you're going to just tilt your head to the side. So you're not rotating your head, you're not turning, you're just tilting from what is the top 2 vertebrae, the atlas and the axis, cervical vertebra 1 and cervical vertebra 2. So you're tilting right ear to right shoulder, just to where it's comfortable. And then you're going to look down at your right shoulder. So what the head tilt does is it brings your skull backwards and pulls it upwards and brings you into that perfect alignment through the vertebra of your neck. So it's gonna just retract your head and uplift, and immediately you do that head tilt, you're decompressing the blood flow to and from the brain and the nerves that come out of the brainstem. So even before you start, you're already doing some really important things. So then you're looking down at your shoulder, your right shoulder, tilting to the right, looking at the right shoulder. And if you were to think of a big clock in front of you, you're looking down to what would be 4 o'clock with both eyes. Keep your eyes there and try and maintain this position for 30 seconds or a count of 30. And what you should get is at some point you should get a yawn, a sigh, a swallow, more saliva in the mouth, maybe a little bit of a cough as you regulate your nervous system. So I just got the swallow there. So ideally stay here for the 30 seconds because you want to realign the vertebra in the neck. So you don't want to do it too quickly. So then say you've done your 30 seconds without moving the bones of your skull, you're looking up and away to what would be 10 o'clock. So the eye positions, wherever your eyes go, you're connecting with different parts of your brain. So there I got the yawn. I got quite a big yawn reflex there. You're not holding your breath, you're breathing naturally. Focus on your breathing because when we alter our breathing, that pushes us into fight and flight. So if we're starting to hold our breath or breathe too quickly, the brain perceives that as danger. So again, about 30 seconds, and then you're coming gently out of it and just do some nose circles. You'll feel quite a strong stretch in these scalenes, these muscles at the side of the neck. And so that feels a little bit uncomfortable, but it's really good to stretch these muscles out. So these muscles in the sides of the neck are breathing muscles. So they get very short and tight if we're anxious. We start to breathe in a different way. And then that pulls the ribs up, which they're attached to, and traps all the nerves that come underneath the collarbone and run down into the arms. So that's called thoracic outlet syndrome. But it comes from over breathing, breathing wrongly, breathing up here instead of breathing into the sides, which even just breathing up here makes you feel quite anxious and you start to hyperventilate, which then kicks off the fight and the flight and the panic attacks. So breathing is important as well. So long neck. So try and lengthen the cervical vertebra before you start. Left ear to left shoulder and don't turn your head. So it's just a head tilt. So head tilt to the left, no rotation. Feel that strong stretch in the neck. The skull is being pulled backwards and upwards, both eyes looking down to the shoulder, which would correlate with 8 o'clock. And you're just looking, you're making sure that you're breathing, you're not holding your breath. You're looking for the sigh, the yawn, the swallow. Quite often when you do this, one side is more dysregulated than the other side. So don't be surprised if one side you get quite a strong reaction. I've got my sigh there. You're doing it for a good 30 seconds because you want to realign those cervical vertebrae. But just say for time's sake that we've done the 30 seconds without moving the skull. Now you're looking up and away at what would be 2 o'clock. And again, you're looking for the same things. One thing I do is I always look at a spot on the ceiling or maybe a light fixture on the ceiling because you'll notice that your vision will become sharper. So another nerve that's being stretched when you do this is the optic nerve. So you'll notice that your vision increases and improves. So not all eye problems are to do with the actual eyes. It might be to do with the nerves that feed the eyes. So there's the yawn, the sigh, the swallow. And then gently come back to center. Just release your neck. I do nose circles because it just relaxes my neck nice and quickly. So that's the salamander. It's called a salamander because the salamander is a lizard that doesn't have a neck and it can only move its head from what is C1 and C2 right at the top. So it's called the salamander. So the final one that we're going to do is really good for reducing pain in the body, for bringing you out of fight and flight, for hypervigilance. And it's just this exercise sort of coordinates the whole brain. It's not just the vagal system, but you're going to take your finger in front of you. You're going to look at your fingertip and you're going to just draw a slow, small circle. So the eyes have got huge influence in the brain. 80% of our brain has connections to the eyes. So you're drawing this circle. And you could do circles or you could do spirals, and you're gradually, let's go for a spiral, you're gradually spiraling outwards. And you do it slow, but maybe sometimes you go a little bit faster. Play around with speed. Try not to move your skull. And if you are moving your skull, just hold your chin. And if you really want to make this effective, you could try humming at the same time. So you could do sort of 5 to 20 circles, and then you could reverse the spiral. Don't go too fast. Make your eyes track the finger. Make sure the bones of the skull are staying perfectly still. So our eyes are going in many different positions, which is firing up all the different parts of the brain. So we're going from right brain to left brain, right emotional brain to left emotional brain. I just got the swallow there. So my vagal system, even though I'd released it quite a few times, balanced even again. And gradually, you're going smaller and smaller. So you could do circles or you could do spirals, play around with size, going fast and slow. And it's the eyes following the finger and, recruiting the whole brain. So a nice healthy brain is right brain and left brain talking to itself, balanced and harmonized. And also just the focus of doing this and humming and breathing. Just, breathing also affects the vagal system, which brings you out fight and flight. And breathing is often the first thing that goes wrong, that takes you into fight and flight. So as something happens that makes us feel anxious, we start to breathe faster, which increases our heart flow, which then signals the brain through the vagal system we're in danger, hyper-vigilance, and then we get adrenaline kicking off and cortisol, real hormones, very powerful hormones that then kick our body into action, which is okay for very short periods of time, but not to be living there all the time, which is very, very dangerous, damaging to the body, and to our health. So I hope some of this helps you. Just choose one or two of these things, play around with them, and see which one helps you the most.